Hello and welcome to my very first Roblox scripting tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a grappling gun, but this is only part 1 of 2. I'm going to split this video up into 2 parts, so it will be much easier to time manage for me, but also so this video isn't ridiculously long. Let's get started. So, right here in the workspace, I have a tool with 2 parts, the grip and the main. It really doesn't matter what the base model of the tool is. But what does matter is that in the tool, you have a part named handle. On the handle, you can click Show Orientation Indicator, which will show you the front of the part, which is this surface right here. You want the front to face the direction you want the tool to go. I'm going to set the size to 1, 1, 1. I'm going to take the position from the grip, and I'm going to paste it into the position of the handle so it has the same position. Now, I'm going to turn transparency to 1. I'm going to turn cast shadow off, and I'm going to set can collide to false. I also want to make sure that the main and the grip have can collide set to false. And I'm going to turn off the orientation indicator. Next, I'm going to duplicate the handle. I'm going to set its transparency back to 1, well, 0, not 1. And I'm going to rename it to fire point. These 2 parts are the only parts that you have to have the same. This can also be named, whatever you want it to be, but you have to adjust it accordingly in the script. I'm going to make sure its can collide is false, transparency is 1, and now we have the tool set up. But now we need to add welds so the tool doesn't fall apart when the player equips it, which is really simple to do. We just add weld constraints into every part. We're going to set the part 0 to the part that it's parented under, well, that it's a child of. So to the parent, which on the grip, part 0, grip. Part 1, handle. Now I'm going to do this in every single part. Now we have the tool set up, so it will no longer fall apart, and it's all welded together to the handle. We're going to need a couple things inside of this tool. We're going to need a folder. We're going to name this folder remotes. We're going to need another folder. We're going to call this one sounds. In the sounds folder, we're going to insert one sound, and I'm going to copy the sound ID from over here. It's a very basic, just suppressed gunshot sound, so it'll sound like a grappling gun. If you want the same ID, the ID is 283-428-9304. So if I preview that, that's what it sounds like. I'm going to rename the sound to fire. Inside of the remotes folder, I'm going to add a remote event. I'm going to name this activated. Activated, if I can spell. And I'm going to add another remote event. I'm going to call this one get player. Then I'm going to add another remote event. And we're going to call this one set can activate. Now in this remotes folder, again, we're going to insert 2 more objects, but this time they're going to be 2 remote functions, which work differently from a remote event. So remote function, this first one is going to be named get range. Then I'm going to insert another remote function, and this one is going to be named get status, or status, however you pronounce it. Now we're going to insert a script. In that script, we're going to insert a module script. We're going to rename it to tool module. In the tool module, we're going to change the local module to local tool and return tool. And now I'm going to insert a local script into the tool and just delete the default code. We're going to do this first, and we're going to do some of the basic code in the server script, and then we'll finish the rest in part 2. But right now, we're going to insert a screen GUI into starter GUI. and I'm going to insert a frame into here. Now the anchor point of this frame, the anchor point determines the exact position, like the absolute position of it. So if I change it to 0.5, 1, which is what I want the anchor point to be, it's just going to change how it positions it. So 0.5 for the first one will make it perfectly centered down the middle when we change the position. And the Y is 1, so it will be perfectly at the bottom when we change the Y position. So now the position is going to be 0.5, 0, 0.9, actually 0.8, 0, just to make sure it goes above the player's backpack. The size of this frame is going to be 0.25, 0, 0.08, 0. I'm going to change the position to 0.85 instead. But now, with the position, since the X position is at half, so 0.5 of 1 on the scale, it's going to be exactly in the middle, so exactly half of the screen. And the Y position is going to be just over, is going to be 85% down on the screen. But if I change the Y position to 1, 0, you'll see it'd be perfectly at the bottom because of the anchor point. But I don't want that because of the tools that the player will have. This will get in the way. Now this frame, its background transparency should be 1. And inside of it, well, before we insert anything, I'm going to rename the frame to tool frame. Then I'm going to rename, I'm going to add a text label. I'm just going to keep it named text label. The background transparency is going to be 1. The position can stay the same. The size is going to be 1. So 100% of the tool frame on the X, 0. So 0 offset pixels, 1. So 100% of the tool frame on the Y, 0. I'm going to change the text in here, and I'm going to set... Actually, I'm not going to set the text first. I'm just going to keep the text blank, because I need to copy the text from a notepad I have on my second monitor, because it's complicated. We're going to change the font. You can change it to whatever you want, but I'm going to change it to Gotham SSM, and I'm going to change the text color to white, but that doesn't necessarily matter. Now the text, I will leave a string in the description, and we're going to enable rich text on this text label, which gives it some special properties. If you know anything about HTML, then you'll be familiar with how to do this. But the text is this huge string. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to set text scale to true. So if we don't have rich text enabled, this will not be possible. So in this, it adds the stroke, it changes the color and the thickness and the transparency of the stroke for the whole text. Then this is just regular text, and then I put a space, then bold, and I change the color of this. We cannot do this if rich text is not enabled. This is what that string looks like. Rich text just helps so you can use more special, more unique text labels. Now we're going to insert another text label. Now this text label is going to be just simply named range. We're going to set the size to be 1, 0, 0.5, 0. Now we're going to change the position to 0, 0, 1, 0. And because we don't set the anchor point, it's going to be perfectly outside of the tool frame. If I set the anchor point, it'll be perfectly at the bottom, but we keep the anchor point at 0, 0, so it stays outside. Now this, I'm going to set range, I'm going to set the text to range, :n/a for not applicable. Background transparency is going to be 1, text scale is going to be true, text color, white, make it to whatever font you want. I'm going to change it to Gotham SSM. And in this text label, I, personally, you don't have to do this, I'm going to insert a UI stroke So we'll add a stroke around the text, and I'm just going to set the transparency to 0.5. So now we have our tool frame, and we will change these text labels in the local script right now. We're going to put the tool frame in the grappling gun. Now in the local script, we're going to need a few variables first. We're going to need players service and run service. So local players equals game :get service players. Oops. Local run service equals game :get service run service. Now we need the player, the character, and the humanoid of the character. So we're going to need 3 variables. So local player, local character, local humanoid. And a very neat tip about scripting in this game with variables and function parameters, you can put a colon and define what type it is. So I can type humanoid, and now I have all of the properties and methods and events of a humanoid object. Up in the player variable, local player equals players dot local player, character equals player dot character or player dot character added :wait. So what this does is it will get the player's character, and if it doesn't exist yet, it will wait for the player added event to be triggered, and it will set it to be equal to the player's character. Then we do humanoid equals character :wait for a child, which will wait for a child of the character to exist with the name humanoid. So wait for child humanoid. Now we're going to need the player's mouse, so local mouse equals player :get mouse. Now we need the tool, so local tool equals script dot parent. The parent of the script is the tool, which is the grappling gun. Now we're going to get the remotes, so local remotes equals tool :wait for child. Oops, I have insert turned on. Wait for child remotes. Must have accidentally bumped my insert key. Now we need the GUI and the 2 text labels. So local GUI, local text label, and local range label. So local GUI equals tool :wait for child, tool frame, local text label equals GUI :wait for child, text label, and local range label equals GUI :wait for child range. Now we're going to need one more variable, which is local is equipped, and that's going to be equal to false. Now we're going to need 4 functions: local function equipped, then local function unequipped, local function activated, and then lastly, we're going to need 2 more. I meant to say 5 functions, not 4. Local function update GUI, and local function render stepped. In the equipped function, at the very top, we're going to do is equipped equals true, and GUI.parent equals player.player GUI.screen GUI. Now, whatever screen GUI you have in the starter player, if you have multiple, so if I add another screen GUI, not a script, another screen GUI and name it to screen GUI 2, then there's going to be screen GUI and screen GUI 2 in the player GUI, because everything in the starter GUI gets copied into the player's player GUI. You can name this to whatever you want, or you can have a second one that's named like tool GUIs for only tools, but I'm just going to keep this, for the tutorial's sake, named screen GUI. Now in the unequipped function, we're going to type is equipped equals false because it's no longer equipped, and GUI.parent equals tool. In the activated function, we're going to type remotes, wait for child, activated, fire server, and in these brackets for the fire server method, we're going to type mouse.target, which is the part that the mouse is hovering over, and mouse.position. Not mouse.position, mouse.hit, which is the exact C-frame, so position basically, in the world where the mouse is touching, where it's hovering over. So instead of the part, which we're already passing, it's the position. In the update GUI function, we're going to type text label dot text equals text. And this function is going to have one parameter, which is text string, because it is a string. So we're defining this as a string. Then we type in text. In the render stepped function, this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do local text equals tool, and not tool remotes, equals remotes, wait for child, get status, invoke server, because it's a remote function instead of a remote event. So the way a remote function works is if you're invoking the server, then it will, on the server, it'll run function, it'll run some code, and then it will return something. And same thing if you're invoking the client on the server, it will run code on the client and return something to the server. So we're going to invoke the server, and in these brackets for invoking, we're going to do mouse.target again. Target if my stupid shift key would work, and mouse.hit again, just like we did when we fired the activated event. We're going to drop a line, and we're going to use the update GUI function, and we're going to put the text through it. So we're going to send the text, this is going to receive the text, and it's going to set the text of the text label to the text. That was a tongue twister. Anyway, we only have a little bit more code to go. So we're going to bind some of these events together, and we're going to make the script actually work. So what we're going to do is tool.equipped connect, and we're going to put the equipped function. Then we're going to do tool.unequipped connect unequipped. It's a very hard word to type when you type fast. I couldn't even spell it right. Unequipped. Tool.activated connect activated, which will fire the server, and we're going to do that server code in a moment, which is only going to have a small amount of things right now. So we're going to drop 2 lines. You should be on line 46 if you're copying my exact formatting. We're going to do remotes, wait for child, get player, fire server. So the server can get the player and update that accordingly. And then we're going to do range label.text equals 2 quotation marks, range, space, outside of the quotation marks, ... remotes, wait for child, get range, invoke server. So the server can return the range of the tool. Now in the server script, we're only going to do a couple things right now. We're just going to set up these events on the server. We need to get some variables first. So the first variables we're going to need is local players equals game, get service players. We're going to need tween service, so local tween service equals game, get service, tween service. We need the tool, so local tool equals script.parent. We're going to need the handle, local handle. I'm just going to get all of the parts of the tool, but it's not necessary. Okay, so I have those 4 variables. The 2 parts you really want to make sure you have is the handle and the fire point. You're going to need the fire point. That's probably the most important part in the whole tool. Next, I'm going to get the remotes, so local remotes equals tool colon wait for child remotes. Then we're going to need the sounds folder, so local sounds equals tool colon wait for child sounds. Now we're going to write two variables for when we tween later with tween service. We're going to need an easing style and an easing direction. And so we don't have to change them between the two tweens, I'm just going to write variables for them. So local easing style equals enum.easingstyle.linear. In the description, right underneath where I left that string earlier for the text label, I will leave a documentation link, a Roblox documentation link, to easing style. It will show you a graph of what the easing style looks like. And if you don't really want to look at that, you can just play with all of the easing styles and find which one you like most. But personally, for this tool, I would just recommend linear. Now we need the easing direction, so local easing direction equals enum.easingdirection.out. Now we're going to need to call the module that we have inside of the script. So local module equals require, so we can get all of the stuff inside of it. Script colon wait for child tool module. Now we're going to connect those events that we wrote from the local script that we fired and we're receiving. We're going to get all of that. We're going to do remotes colon wait for child activated dot on server event colon connect. We're going to create the main function for this actually. I'm going to create categories, functions, and events. We're going to create the main function that will run when the tool gets activated. So we're going to do local function condition. We don't need any parameters for this. Actually, we do need parameters for this. I lied. We need the player, so PLR. I'm going to define it as a player. We're going to need the player, so PLR colon player. Then we're going to need mouse target and mouse hit. We're not going to do anything in this function yet, we're just defining it so we can put it here. Next thing we're going to do is remotes colon wait for child set can activate dot on server event colon connect. We don't have a function for this yet, we're going to write that in the module script in the next episode. Next thing we're going to do is remotes colon wait for child get range dot on server invoke, since it is a remote function and not a remote event, equals nil because we don't have a function for this and that's gonna error. So I'm gonna do next thing we're gonna do is remotes colon wait for child get status dot on server invoke. We're gonna do again equals nil. And we're gonna do remotes colon wait for child get player dot on server event colon connect function. We're gonna have the player, and that's it. At the top of the script, we're gonna have two variables. I'm gonna put it just above all of the tool variables, so above local tool. We're gonna do local player, and that's gonna be equal to nothing, and the local character, which is going to be equal to nothing. Because down here, we're going to define player, local player equals PLR, and not local player, player equals PLR, and character equals PLR.character, or PLR.character added colon wait. So, like I explained in the local script, it'll wait for the character to exist if it doesn't. And that's going to wrap up this part of the tutorial. In the next part, we're going to finish the script and the module script, and then the tool will be done. I hope to see you in the next part of the tutorial. Goodbye!